I almost ignored the text when it first arrived. Family dinner, Saturday, 7 sharp. No excuses this time. My cousin June's name lit up the screen, a reminder of bonds I'd quietly let fray. Months had passed since we'd spoken. Years since I'd seen her parents. Still, something in the phrasing, commanding but strangely urgent, kept me from deleting it. By Saturday evening I found myself steering my car along the narrow road that wound toward the old Harrington estate. The house looked smaller than I remembered, a Victorian crouched behind overgrown hedges and skeletal maples. Porch lights glowed like a lure. As I climbed the steps, a gust carried the scent of rain-soaked earth and something metallic, almost like pennies on the tongue. The door opened before I knocked. "Avery!" June's voice rang out, bright and brittle. She hugged me quickly, her eyes darting toward the hallway behind me as though checking for witnesses. "Come in, everyone's waiting." The dining room seemed frozen in time. Heavy oak table, lace runner, brass chandelier that flickered unevenly. Uncle Victor sat at the head, his posture as rigid as his pressed shirt. Aunt Lydia hovered near the sideboard, pouring wine with a measured hand. At the far end, my younger brother Milo tapped at his phone, barely glancing up. They greeted me with the kind of smiles that don't quite reach the eyes. I took the empty chair they'd clearly reserved. A glass of dark red wine waited beside the plate, its surface catching the light like a warning. "You still like Merlot, right?" Lydia asked. It wasn't really a question. I hadn't touched alcohol in years, an allergy that once sent me to the ER, but mentioning it felt like throwing a stone into still water. So I just nodded and folded my hands. Dinner began with the usual pleasantries, traffic complaints, weather small talk, jokes about Milo's obsession with virtual reality. Yet beneath the words I sensed a quiet choreography. Lydia kept refilling my glass though I never sipped. Victor's gaze lingered too long when he asked about my work at the city archives. Even June, normally a whirlwind of chatter, seemed oddly measured, her laughter coming half a beat late. Halfway through the roast chicken, my phone vibrated against my thigh. I slid it out beneath the tablecloth. An unknown number. "Do not drink. Pretend you're unwell. Leave now." The message pulled the air from the room. My heart thudded, but I kept my face neutral. Another buzz. "They need what you're carrying. Get out before dessert." I had no idea what they meant. My wallet. My laptop bag in the car. Still, a cold recognition settled in, like a memory half remembered. I set the phone down carefully and reached for my napkin. "Everything okay?" Victor's voice was smooth but probing. "Fine," I said, forcing a small smile. "Just a bit of a headache. Maybe the drive." The conversation drifted on, but I felt every glance like a pinprick. Beneath the table my knee bounced uncontrollably. Whatever game they were playing, I needed to decide whether to stay and feign ignorance or follow the anonymous warning. The hallway swallowed me in dim lamplight as I stepped away from the table. Old wallpaper, once cream, had faded to a dull parchment hue. A faint hum from the baseboards vibrated against my fingertips. A trick of the heating system or something more. My shoes whispered across the runner carpet as I crossed to the little study that used to be my uncle's retreat. It smelled of lemon polish and secrets, the way old rooms do when they've seen too many late-night conversations. My phone pulsed again before I even closed the door. "Unknown, you still have the key?" "Key?" I froze, the question tugging at memory. Then a second line arrived almost instantly. "They can't leave tonight without it. Keep your bag with you at all times." My bag. The small leather satchel that rarely left my shoulder held a thin brass key stitched into its lining, a relic I had nearly forgotten. My father's last quiet act had been to slip it into my hand during a hospital visit 2 years ago, whispering only, "For when the time comes." I had never asked what time meant. A floorboard creaked behind me. I whirled. June filled the doorway, framed by the amber hall light. Her face was soft, but her eyes carried a tension I didn't recognize. "You okay?" she asked. "You left so suddenly." "I just needed a moment," I said, willing my heartbeat to slow. She stepped closer, her perfume a faint mix of lilac and smoke. "Want me to hold your bag while you freshen up? I can set it somewhere safe." I tightened the strap across my shoulder. No, I'm fine. For an instant her expression hardened, a flicker of something colder than concern. Then the familiar cousinly grin returned, practiced and bright. All right, she said lightly. But don't disappear too long. Dessert's almost ready. She slipped back into the hall, closing the door without a sound. I pressed my palms to the desk, breathing in measured counts. The phone buzzed again. Trust no one. Especially her. The words settled like lead. I checked the window, locked from the inside, and tried to decide whether I was being protected or manipulated. When I returned to the dining room, conversation lulled for a half-second, like a record skipping. Victor quickly resumed a story about a city council deal, but his gaze followed me as I Saturday. Lydia offered a smile so thin it could cut paper. My untouched wine glass gleamed, refilled to the brim. You look flushed, she said. A sip will help. Water's fine, I replied, pulling my phone closer to the edge of the table. Across from me, Milo finally looked up from his device. Dad says archivists are like professional secret keepers, he said, his tone oddly pointed. You must have some interesting things hidden away. Mostly old city maps, I said. Victor's knife paused mid-slice. Some secrets can change fortunes, he murmured. The room seemed to tilt with the weight of the sentence. Dessert arrived, blackberry tort glistening under candlelight. The sweetness on my plate felt like bait. I forced down a bite, watching for signs that anyone else was eating. They were, but each glance they cast toward my bag was a little too synchronized, a little too expectant. My phone vibrated yet again, and I dared a quick look beneath the tablecloth. Back door. Mudroom. Now, don't let them separate you from the bag. I set my fork down with deliberate calm. Excuse me, I said. I need to wash my hands before dessert makes me sticky. Of course, Lydia replied, though her eyes sharpened as they followed me. I slipped from the dining room, the heavy door easing shut behind me with a sigh. The hallway stretched ahead, dim and quiet except for the low tick of an ancient clock. My steps sank into the carpet, each one deliberate as I moved toward the mudroom. The air here felt different, cooler, touched by the damp scent of rain seeping through the old walls. I gripped the strap of my satchel tighter, the brass key within suddenly feeling heavier than its weight. The mudroom was shadowed, lit only by a thin strip of moonlight leaking through the window above the back door. I reached for the bolt, heart thudding in my ears. A single metallic click, and the door would open onto the night. But before I could turn it, a voice slipped through the darkness. Going somewhere. Victor's silhouette emerged from the hallway, tall and broad, blocking the faint light behind him. His face was calm, but the set of his jaw carried an edge I had never seen before. You've barely touched dessert, he said. Leaving so soon. I kept my voice steady. Just wanted a breath of fresh air. He stepped closer, shoes silent on the old tile. Not without the keys, Avery. A chill prickled the back of my neck. Keys. June appeared behind him, her arms folded, eyes glinting in the dim light. You know which ones, she said softly. Dad explained it's family property. It belongs to all of us. My grip tightened on the bag. It's not yours. Victor's smile thinned. Your father wouldn't have wanted secrets between us. That deposit box contains what was built with our name. We're entitled to it. A soft rustle signaled Lydia's arrival. Her perfume reached me before she did, sharp citrus layered with something sweeter. Don't make this unpleasant, she murmured. Hand it over and we can all move forward as a family. They edged closer, a silent, practiced triangle. My back pressed against the cold wood of the door. I could hear the faint rasp of their breathing, feel the tension in the air like a live wire. Panic clawed at me, but instinct cut through. I twisted the bolt sharply and yanked the door open. Night air rushed in, damp and electric. I darted through the gap before they could react. Gravel crunched under my shoes as I sprinted across the driveway. Behind me, voices erupted. Victor's sharp bark, June's startled call, the slam of the back door. The car keys were already in my hand. I threw myself behind the wheel, started the engine, and reversed hard. Figures burst from the shadows as the headlights flared, June's pale face, Victor's outstretched arm, but the tires bit into the gravel and I shot down the narrow lane. Branches scraped the car as I sped into the night. My phone buzzed again, its glow harsh in the darkness. I risked a glance, unknown number, the same as before. Drive to the old pier. Lights off. Hurry. I didn't question it. The urgency in those words matched the pounding in my chest. I switched off the headlights and guided the car along the twisting road by memory and faint moonlight. The town's outskirts blurred past, dark storefronts, silent gas stations, until the scent of salt and wet would told me I was near the bay. The pier emerged from the mist like a phantom, its weathered planks stretching into black water. A lone figure stood at the far end, shoulders hunched against the cold. I parked a short distance away, engine idling low, and stepped out, the night air biting my cheeks. "You made it." The man's voice was quiet but sure. A hood shadowed his face, but the stance was confident. "I'm Caleb. Your father trusted me." My breath caught. "Trusted you with what?" He reached into his coat and drew out a small object. Moonlight glinted on brass, a key identical to the one hidden in my bag. "He knew they'd come for you. The box holds evidence against Victor, fraud, embezzlement, things that could ruin more than his reputation. Your father intended to expose him, but his death came too soon." I shivered, the damp wind slicing through my coat. "Why wait until now to tell me?" "Because tonight was the night they planned to take it from you," Caleb said. "I couldn't risk alerting them too soon. You needed to see their desperation yourself." The bay stretched dark and endless beyond us, waves lapping softly against the pier's supports. Caleb's words settled like stones in my mind. My family hadn't simply wanted the inheritance, they wanted to bury the truth. And now I was the last barrier between them and exposure. He extended a sealed envelope, heavy and cold. "This explains everything. Keep it safe. Leave town tonight. New phone, new address. Trust no one connected to that house." I took the envelope, its edges stiff beneath my fingers. Somewhere behind us, in the fog, a car engine growled. Headlights flared faintly through the mist. Caleb stepped back into shadow, urgency sharpening his voice. "Go, Avery. Now." The fog thickened as I turned from Caleb, his figure dissolving into the grey like a memory already fading. The pier groaned beneath my steps as I hurried back to the car, the sealed envelope clutched against my chest. Behind me the low growl of an engine swelled, headlights cutting pale tunnels through the mist. I dove into the driver's seat and started the engine with trembling hands. Gravel sprayed behind me as I pulled away from the bay. My phone, still glowing in the passenger seat, buzzed once more, an unfamiliar number flashing across the screen. I hesitated, then answered. "Avery." Victor's voice, clipped and cold. "Don't do something you'll regret. That box doesn't belong to you." My grip tightened on the wheel. "It was never yours." "You think running will save you," he snapped. "You don't know the people I work with. Bring the key home and we can forget tonight ever happened." I ended the call without a word. The highway opened before me, a dark ribbon gleaming with recent rain. Each passing mile put a thicker wall of distance between me and the Harrington estate, but tension still gripped my spine like a vice. At dawn I reached the small city where I'd once attended college. Its streets were half familiar, washed clean by early light. I parked in an empty lot and finally examined the envelope Caleb had given me. Inside lay a second key, bank statements detailing wire transfers in staggering amounts, photographs of Victor with men I didn't recognize. Politicians, contractors, faces marked with dates and locations. Each page was damning. Each page could undo everything the Harrington name had built. I copied the documents onto an encrypted drive, sent duplicates to a trusted lawyer from my father's past, and secured the originals in a new lockbox under an alias. By the time the city stirred awake, I had a temporary apartment lined up and a prepaid phone activated under a false name. The messages began almost immediately. Unknown numbers, then blocked calls. Please turned to threats. June wrote once, *, you don't understand. We were protecting the family. *, I didn't respond. Lydia tried next. Asterisk, this will ruin us all. Please come home. Asterisk, silence again. Victor's final voicemail was a low growl of anger and desperation. Asterisk, you can't hide forever. Blood means something. Asterisk, I deleted it without listening to the end. Days stretched into weeks. I kept moving, different rentals, different routes to the grocery store, until the panic dulled into a cautious rhythm. The city became a patchwork of quiet corners where no one knew my name. I changed my number, froze my credit, and left instructions with the lawyer to release the evidence if anything happened to me. Months later, a news alert lit my phone while I was standing in line for coffee. Asterisk, local businessman investigated for embezzlement. Asterisk, Victor's face stared back from the screen, older somehow, the arrogance drained from his eyes. The article detailed a cascade of financial crimes and hinted at political bribery. No mention of me, no hint of the night on the pier. But I knew the chain of events had reached its inevitable conclusion. I walked away from the cafe and into the crisp autumn air, feeling the world widen around me. For the first time since my father's death, the weight of his secret lifted. The Harrington fortune would crumble, but the truth would stand. One final message arrived that evening from an unknown number. Only 3 words. Asterisk, he'd be proud. Asterisk, whether it was Caleb or someone else who'd been watching, I never found out. I didn't need to. Now, when I open my apartment door and step into the quiet, everything inside belongs solely to me. The second-hand furniture, the books stacked by the window, the steady hum of a life rebuilt. Family, I've learned, isn't always the people who share your blood. Sometimes it's the choice to stand alone, carrying the truth no matter how heavy.